All right, thanks, Callie. Well, again, another welcome to the monthly webinar. As Callie said, I'm Tony Bergantino down at the State Climate Office, and we're in the Department of Atmospheric Science down here in Laramie, where last night at about 7:50 p.m., I had the rather dubious distinction of witnessing the first snowflakes falling here. They melted as soon as they hit the ground, but I was still less than pleased. All right. So the webinar this month, it's a coordinated effort as it usually or always is between my office and University of Wyoming Extension. We got the U.S. Geological Survey, State Engineer's Office. We also have the National Weather Service, the Riverton office this month, and also the Bureau of Land Management. So today, a preview of coming attractions. Drought status and conditions, surface water status, some water rights administration, and all that followed by weather forecasts and outlooks, and then wildland fire conditions. And then we'll come back to the state engineer's office to get a look at their SEO flow tool and get a little demo of that. So here is the current map valid through Tuesday the 16th. Only a few overall changes between now and the last webinar, and for a change, there was more area that improved than was degraded. We do still have a lot of that D3 or extreme drought in the west and southwest, surrounded by the orangish color there, which is D2 or severe drought. And then we have the northeast Wyoming here, remains free of any of the D designations, as does most of Laramie County down here in the southeast. So comparing where we were last year at this time over here on the left with the current map, the one we just saw here on the right, given that there were not many changes shown on the previous slide, we've had pretty much the same situation as when we did the comparison last month, comparing to the previous year, which means it's a lot of differences between last year and now. In short, if you run a line diagonally from the northwest corner of the state down to the southeast corner, conditions are better on the northeastern side of that line this year and worse on the southwestern side compared to a year ago. Yeah, with more than 25 years of weekly conditions, this chart's getting a little bit compressed and busy, but I'll just quickly show, put the current conditions into a historical context. Currently, we have 78, looks like 78.668% of the state in one of the D categories. That's abnormally dry through the exceptional drought category. Again, that abnormally dry is not actually drought. It's that we're moving in or moving out of drought heads up level. That 78.68 is up less than 1% from where we were when we held our last webinar, and that's actually remained constant since the week after we held it. But if you look at the area of the state covered by actual drought, the D1 through D4, moderate through exceptional drought, then we're at 51.88% of Wyoming affected, and that's actually down just over 1%, 1.13 to be precise, since our last webinar. While the recent precipitation has helped, since quite a bit of the drought affected area of the state was, it's already covered in those D2 or D3 categories. When you do have an improvement and it's a one category improvement, it doesn't really change anything. You get the intensity is lessening, but the overall, the areal extent of the drought doesn't change much or at all, as we see. So going to that period from 2020 to current, we can see the details a lot better here. 21.33% of the state is free of any of those D categories, while we have about 19.4% of the state still in extreme drought or D3, that red color. And that amount is down about a 0.5% or so from the last webinar, but for the 3 weeks between the webinars, the level was actually about 3% higher, and it's only in the last week that extent of the D3 has come down to where we are now here at this 19.37% of the state. All right, 14-day precipitation As a percentile here, we have eastern Park County, the far northeast, southeastern Wyoming, all been above the median for the last 2 weeks. Unfortunately, lower Fremont County, Bighorns, southwestern, south central Wyoming, especially the Sierra Madres, has been below median, though it has improved over the last little bit thanks to the recent precipitation that we've been seeing. Going back 3 months now, we see the Northeast standing out as well above median and the Southwest as well below median. And then to a somewhat lesser extent, most of the West has been below median, along with some parts of the East Central Wyoming area. Laramie County, Central Albany County, and Southern Goshen kind of do stand out as being a bit above the median too, which is good. All right, going to do things a little differently with a standardized precipitation index this month. I've got two sets of maps to show some comparisons. This top row it's going to be the same maps that we usually show, but just a little bit different format here. The top row here being the 30, 60, and 1-year depictions, but these are the ones that were shown during the last webinar. So these were through 2/3 of the way through August or so. And then the bottom row has the same time frames, 30, 60 days in 1 year, but showing the current SPI, what we're looking at right now. And I did this just to show how things have improved in the last month, thanks to that wetter pattern we've been seeing. At 30 days down here on the bottom left, we're normal to wet throughout the entire state compared to what we were looking at a month ago. And then if you look here at the bottom middle, this is being the 60-day depiction. The wetter signal is lessened a bit in the far northeast, but the area is expanded. And then in the west and southwest, we're still seeing dry conditions, but they're a darn good sight better than we were looking at last month. And then the pattern here on the 1 year on the lower left, very similar to the last month, but the intensities have lessened somewhat, both on the wet and the dry side. There's been a bit of expansion in the southeast in the current depiction of that drier conditions, but overall, generally looking at a better picture now at the 1 year period than we were about a month ago. So we'll jump now to looking at temperature. 2-week average actual temperatures here on the upper right. Nighttime lows have slipped back down below the freezing mark up at the very high elevations. I'm not seeing that elsewhere in the state, but the high tops are seeing it. Southwest and south central parts have been seeing mostly lows in the upper 30s and 40s, while the Bighorn Basin, northeast, and then east of the Laramie Range been mostly in the upper 40s and even some low 50s for nighttime lows. But as departures from normal go, down here on the lower left, most of the state been above normal with some moderately sized pockets of around normal, those gray areas. And then the largest region of this above normal, positive departure from normal has been in the upper green, roughly the area around Sublette County, where they've been seeing about 10 or more degrees above normal, then followed by the Tetons and south of there, and then some areas up in the Bighorn Basin, and then down along the Albany-Carbon County line. Platte County, northern Laramie Range are well above normal as well for the last 2 weeks, at least as far as minimum temperatures go. And then switching over to maximums, these are your daytime highs here on the upper right, mostly in the 70s, 80s, except for the high elevations, which we're only getting down into the upper 50s and 60s, a few lower 50s at the real high points. Bighorn Basin, Central Wind Basin, and then large parts of the northeast and east of the Laramie Range again have been right around the 80-degree mark, plus or minus, with some spots down in the mid-70s over the last 2 weeks. The Southwest has been the coolest of those the lower elevation regions, only getting into the low to mid-70s, Well, you got areas there on the borders of Weston and Niobrara, and then down along Platte and Goshen County that are still getting into the low to mid 80s, but those times will be behind us soon. In terms of departure, again down here on the lower left, quite a bit of the state was around normal. Again, that gray area on the map here. West saw greatest departures above normal with Goshen and parts of Albany County, fairly similar magnitude, but by and large, most of the state was within plus or minus 2 degrees of normal, with a few scattered warmer pockets that you can see around here. All right, let's jump over to soil moisture. Still looking fairly bad for the west and the southwestern 2/3 of the state. When you compare 2 weeks ago to now, you can see that it's getting a bit worse. Some deterioration in the last 2 weeks on top of what was already there. The only improvements shown here are in the Bighorn Basin area, pretty much. A few of the other soil moisture models do not show as grim a picture as some of the ones that take a few more parameters into effect, but they do also still have the Northwest down in the lower percentiles, and like the ones shown here, have also shown some degradations over the last week. And finally, the new year, the new water year, that is, won't be starting for another 2 weeks or so, but did want to kind of set the stage for the snowpack portion. And we have this map here showing our first snow accumulations in a few spots. And notably, you've got the Medbos, Wind River Range, then up in the Owl Creek Mountains, down along the southwestern parts of the Bighorn Basin up here. And so you can see why in about a dozen days or so, we're gonna start a new water year. Things are starting to build up now, which is gonna then accumulate through the winter and hopefully feed those rivers in the spring. And I know that was a bit of a stretch there, but I was trying to come up with a good segue to turn it over to Aaron Fiaschetti, who's with USGS, and I'll do that now, and he'll give us a look at the state of surface water. Aaron?
Thanks, Tony. So here's a look at our real-time conditions for the state. This is from the National Water Information Dashboard, and just kind of run through the percentiles here, and this will be kind of, the colors and the percentiles be common throughout the presentation. So the green is what the USGS considers normal. That's the 25th to the 75th percentile. So the 25th being a lower flow, the middle flow would be the median, the 50th percentile, and then 75th would be a higher flow. So it's just saying it's normal for it to be low and it's normal for it to be high this time of year. We don't really have to worry about the above normals or much above normals right now, but there is a fair amount of the below the 25th percentile, the 10 to the 24th. Those are the orange on the map. The dark red is much below normal. That's below the 10th percentile. And then unfortunately, we have a few all-time lows for the day, and that's the bright red, and that'd be they're over on the Green River, and then one of the tributaries of the Snake up there and in around Jackson. And then I guess I'm drawing a blank on which one it'd be there in the southeastern part of the state, but probably maybe the Salt River or something in that neck of the woods. So that's kind of it's a bit of a mixed bag here of normal to below normal conditions, and more likely than not, if you clicked on a normal gauge, it's probably below the median. It's somewhere between the 25th and the 50th percentile. There's some exceptions up in the northeast corner, and I misspoke earlier when I said that bright red is in the southeast. It's in the southwest. Having trouble with my directions. So moving on to just a look at where we are in the water year. What's important here is that black line. That's this is a area-based runoff for the entire state of Wyoming, and this is certainly more geared towards snow melt, water supply that comes off snow melt from mountains. But you can see right now we're kind of approaching the going into kind of winter base flows. So right now across the state, we're in that below that 10th percentile in a lot of places. But the point being is that it's not a time of great water supply. You can kind of see if you go to the end of the water year, end of September, and then back to the beginning of the graph in October, that blue line gets a little bit higher, the above normal. So there is chances for more precipitation, potential for stream flows to increase as we get closer to a killing frost, agricultural demands go down, riparian ET consumption by cottonwoods and willows, those things slow down and can increase flow. And then we just kind of come into more rain and melting snow potentially to help boost flows. But in general, those changes in flow aren't very large. And the point here too being is that we should be at much higher water supply conditions in a normal year. So moving on to just kind of take a look at the last 28 days. This is a 28-day average stream flow. This is a product from WaterWatch. And we have a couple lowest ever 28-day averages. The Gardner River up in Yellowstone Park, the Green River near LaBarge, and then Deer Creek near Glen Rock. For the Gardner River and the Green River, those are pretty good periods of records, 74, 60 years of records. So that's going back into the 50s and 60s. That's a lot of data to be setting an all-time low. So that means flows are significantly low. The Deer Creek, Glen Rock's a little bit less of a period of record, 34 years. And then if you kind of surfed around to most of those green sites, as I mentioned before, the normal sites, it'd probably be below the median. The Powder and Tongue, those flows are a little bit closer to the median, doing a little bit better up in that northeast corner of the state. So just to take a look at, we're going to bounce around the state here and look at a couple hydrographs, but I just wanted to put this graphic up to show which gauges we're going to and where the drought severity was. So we have our drought categories that Tony showed before: the extreme, the red; the severe, the orange; the moderate is the brown; and the abnormally dry is the yellow. And then the corner that has no drought, but it seems like maybe that should be abnormally not in drought based on all the drought in the state and the presence of drought in the recent years. So we'll just kind of make our way around to these gauges and just kind of take a closer look at flow. So we'll go up to the North Fork of the Shoshone first. So if we could go to the next slide. So here's a similar hydrograph where the focus would be on the black line on the North Fork of the Shoshone, and you can see where, coming off a runoff, we had a little bit early runoff and some above normal flows there, and then it quickly receded down to that 25th percentile throughout the falling limb of the hydrograph into July and August and September, and even into the 10th percentile right on the border there. And we've had a couple bumps and flows, but those have been pretty short-lived, and that's pretty common with flow, storms in August and even into early September. It's really going to take sustained precipitation to increase flows dramatically in a place like this without major diversions upstream that would be shut off. So things are kind of improved, but they're still on the lower end of what we would consider normal there at the North Fork of the Shoshone here. Moving over to the Middle Fork of the Powder, well, things look quite a bit better over there. The runoff, the timing looked pretty normal and pretty good flows there. And then things did recede into closer to the 25th percentile, but above that, we had a pretty good storm and bump and flows in the end of July, and then things have been hanging pretty close to the median in that location. So that'd be one of the brighter spots for stream flows in the state right now. and probably expect those flows to stay pretty similar to that through the end of the water year. And moving over to the North Platte above Seminole, things look quite a bit worse down here. Runoff was pretty close to the 25th percentile, not a lot of water moving through the system there. And then things just kind of proceeded to get worse from there, falling off into the 25th percentile, down into the below the 10th percentile. Had a pretty good bump in flow there in August, but kind of short-lived and helped out some, but things are still quite low in that location, and probably expected to continue on at that without a significant change in the weather. Moving over to the Green River near LaBarge, this is the site where that 28-day all-time low record was set. You'll see that runoff kind of started to come off quite early, and then there was a big dip in flows, and then back up to the close to the above normal conditions, and things just kind of fell off from there, similar to what we saw to the North Platte, with the exception here is that black line going below that 10th percentile, close to the, I guess that'd be the 0 percentile if you're setting an all-time record. So in a little bit of a bump in flow that we've seen there at the end of August, but things fell right back off and setting record lows in that location right now still. And then one more to just take a look at the Snake River above the Palisades Reservoir near Alpine. Runoff a little bit early there, but in kind of a normal flow volume. And then a similar kind of on repeat here with things falling off into that 25th percentile, 10th percentile after runoff into summer flows. And then we're seeing a little bit of a bump in flows there recently. I'm not sure if that's due to precipitation or management of Jackson Lake upstream. So that I guess maybe there's someone that can provide some context on that, but things are looking a little better at that site and in that location right now. Hopefully next time I can kind of do a summary of the water year and look at some departures of where we landed on a volumetric flow. So just moving over to reservoir, water temperature. I forgot about that. Here's a snapshot of water temperatures. This is from our drought viewer, just to take a look. I meant to get a middle of the day, like 3 or 4 p.m. when water temperatures would be quite a bit warmer, but just seeing that in general, water temperatures are looking pretty good here, pretty cool, where they should be. In this little snapshot is from the Wind River above Basin, and just kind of those maximum daily temperatures are right around 68 degrees. So the temperatures aren't looking too hot in the state right now, as you'd expect with longer nights and cooler temperatures. So becoming less of an issue for fisheries and cold water fisheries right now with temperatures throughout the state. The bright red triangle up there in the northwest corner is the Boiling River. So that's 120 degrees, quite hot. And then the other is Tantalus below some of those springs. So those kind of are anomalies there for the normal water temperatures, we'll say. And then moving to reservoirs real quickly here. Not a time, a lot of water moving around. So most reservoirs have been decreasing as they meet needs for downstream. There has been some pretty notable decreases in Palisades, Jackson, and Buffalo Bill. Those are kind of drawn down more like 10 to 12%. So, but most decreases in storage were pretty minor, 1 to 5%, as water levels went down to meet whatever needs there might be. So that's all I have. Thank you, Tony.
All right, thanks, Aaron. So for an update on Surface Water Rights Administration around the state, Jeff Cowley with the State Engineer's Office is with us.
Thank you, Tony. And as Aaron just pointed out, you'll see here in a second, when river flows go down, there's less to be diverted, and we have more folks placing calls, looking upstream to figure out where their water is. So to start off here, if you haven't seen it before, this is the state of Wyoming divided up into our 4 divisions. Division 1 in the lower right-hand corner, moving counterclockwise through divisions 2, 3, and 4, and contact information for all those superintendents if you have questions about water or need to place a call for regulation. Next slide. Starting off here in Division 1, these, I believe all of our divisions are now 2 pages, 2 slides at least. We've got a lot of calls going on out there, and as you can see, the calls are pretty deep into the priority system, 1800s, 1875, 1880. Just to let you know or remind you, Wyoming became a state in 1890, so a lot of these are territorial rights that are calling on the river. Or on those streams. So I think the next slide, Tony, may have one new one. Nope, not a new one yet. The new ones are in bold, so we may see one of those here in a second, but you can just see all the creeks are into the 1800s, which is not good. Next slide. Now we're into Division 2. We have a new one on this one. Crazy Woman Creek is now regulated to 1889. Just to point out, sorry, I missed this. These are all updated as of September 16th, just 2 days ago. So again, things are wetter in the northeast corner of the state, but still a lot of streams are under regulation quite deep. Next slide, Division 3, still here. These are all the calls that came on early, 1900, 1901. Next slide, I think, has a new one. Yeah, now Tensleep is regulated to 1890. Not a good runoff year for folks to be doing a lot of agricultural work. Next slide, Tony, I think is Division 4. We've got a lot of 1800s again. I think the last slide has 1 or 2 new ones. Again, only 1 new one. Hams Fork is now regulated to 1890. So a lot of territorial calls out there that have been on for quite a lot of time this summer. Our field staff is stretched pretty thin, running around, making sure all of these calls are monitored and maintained throughout the most of the summer this year. I think that's the last slide for me, Tony.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, and now we'll go over to Lance Vandenberger. He's with the Weather Service office up in Riverton, and we'll look at outlooks and forecasts.
All right, thanks, Tony. So we're looking here at our typical hazard calendar for Wyoming. You can see that we're kind of in the fall transition season. Some of those whiskers go a little bit further outside of their main seasons, so we can have just about anything this time of year. But it's not the prime time for any particular weather. Fire weather, flash flooding, thunderstorms are wrapping up, but we're starting to move in that time frame where we can get early winter storms, especially in the terrain, and some stronger winds, as well as the jet stream on average moves a little further south. So with that, we'll look at the next 7 days and look at precipitation specifically. It does look dry for most of the upcoming week. There is one weather system that will be moving through Sunday into Monday. That's probably going to bring mainly light rain. So it looks like a lot of green on this map, but if you look at the key, you'll see that most of that green is under 1/10 of an inch, or maybe right around 1/10 of an inch. So not necessarily expecting a lot of rain with this system, but the mountains could see anywhere from 1/4 inch to maybe a little bit more than that. Saturday is going to be the warmest day in the next week, and then Monday will be the coolest after this weather system moves through. On average, though, we'll be about 5 degrees above average for temperatures over this week. And then we'll go ahead and jump forward to the week after next. So starting the 25th and going till October 1st, you can see that on the left-hand side there, red colors denote an above normal chance for above average temperatures. And all the state is covered in red. The highest confidence is in the eastern portion of the state, where you see some of those darker reds moving in. And then on the right, you can see the precipitation as far as what's the lean. If we look at the overall larger scale global climate system, and just a slight lean towards above normal. So although that looks like a lot of nice light colored green, that's pretty close to no additional information, maybe with just a slight nudge towards maybe there'll be a little bit more than average precipitation during that 7-day period. All right, same type of maps as we move to the 1-month outlook. So this is looking for the month of October. You can see that the confidence goes way down as far as temperatures. There is still a lean towards warmer than normal for the western, kind of southwestern half of the state, but then not much signal in the northeast. And if you look on the right there, we got a pure white precipitation map, which means no lean in any direction. So not much signal for below or above. So you have an equal chance of having above, below, and then near normal conditions. So climatology is your best forecast whenever you see that white show up. And then if we look at the first part of winter, I'm starting to get those questions from folks saying, hey, what's this winter going to be like? So we're not looking at the whole winter here, but we're looking kind of the early parts of winter. Looks like there is still that lean towards above normal temperatures for the whole state, and then not much signal as far as precipitation. So if you hear someone saying how it's going to be, extremely wet and, speaking very confidently about the precipitation for the winter, probably not, at least not for the first part of winter. There's not really a lot of signal going into as you look at the larger scale statistics there. So I think that is it for weather.
All right. Thanks, Lance. And now we'll head over to Chase Lane with the Bureau of Land Management to look at the wildland fire situation.
Thanks, Tony. Before we jump around the state and look at some graphs of current conditions and outlooks, I just want to kind of give a background and some information on things in fire that we monitor for to kind of predict fire behavior and potential outlooks. So one of the big ones is fuel moisture content. There's a measurement of the amount of water in a fuel expressed by a percentage of dry weight. We go out to the field, collect fuel samples, bring them back, weigh them, dry them out, and then weigh them again and see how much of that fuel is water. Obviously, as fuel moisture content goes down, likelihood for fires and fire behavior goes up. One way that this can be expressed is energy release components. The index itself measures heat per unit when a landscape burns, but the trend increases with drier fuel conditions and reflects both the energy available from both live and dead fuels. So when we collect fuel samples or fuel moisture, we're looking primarily at live fuels. We do collect some dead fuels, but really we're looking at live fuels there. Energy release component predicts a lot of dead fuels, and it serves as an indicator for potential fire danger and intensity. This is a good measurement, and we'll look at a couple of these today for trends and overall fire season intensity and a good outlook. It's not super dynamic. It does change, but it's your day-to-day fluctuations from precip aren't always reflected as well in looking at your ERCs. And then the final one we look at is fuel loading. So the amount of live fuels or dead fuels on a landscape. As there's more fuel, there's higher resistance to control or more likelihood for a fire to start in some of those areas that normally don't have a lot of fuel. So moving forward, we'll jump into a couple ERC graphs. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see a map, and I highlighted kind of the area that we're looking at. And then on the left-hand side, the larger graph, you'll see a blue line, which is the current year up to today. You'll see a red line, which represents the maximum for today. For generally, we look at a 10-year period, sometimes up to 20 years. So that line is the highest recorded point for any given day. And then you'll see a light gray line, which represents the average. And then those horizontal lines represent the 90th and the 97th percentile. So generally, we characterize high fire danger as above the 90th percentile and very high extreme danger above the 97th percentile. So looking at this over in the Devil's Tower area, you can see we're we're definitely trending below average for this time of year. And you can see it was a better water year than last year up there. We never really even got above the 90th percentile, kind of early in the year, about in May. And I think that's represented by the amount of fires that we had in there in comparison to last year. On the next slide, this is the only one that we'll look at fuel moisture. I just wanted to show you an example of a way that we monitor 1,000-hour fuel moistures. So 1,000-hour fuel moistures are going to be your large dead logs greater than 3 inches. These are another slow-moving trend that we use to measure how likely is the large woody material to burn. So this is inverse from the previous graph in that the lower fuel moisture is represented by the red line, so the lowest recorded fuel moisture, and then the average fuel moisture is the gray, and then this year is the blue. And you can see that we're sitting right about average. We had all that rain just the last couple days, but we still are sitting average because it's a slower moving trend. For the next slide, it's just going to be ERCs from here on out. 1,000-hour fuel moistures are incorporated into the ERCs, is why I didn't break them out for each one. I just wanted to give you a representation of how we look at some fuel moistures. So moving over to the bighorns, you'll see kind of right in that middle August, we reached what could be characterized as extreme or very high fire danger, but then we received some precip and it cooled off, and we had a significant drop below the average. And then we had a drying period, kind of bounced back up around normal, and then this last weather system dropped us down pretty low, below average again. On the next slide, we'll look at the Shoshone. Pretty similar. You can see reached above the 97th percentile. We weren't setting maximums, but still high fire potential there. And then weather system moved in, bounced down, recovered, and then this last weather system bounced below the average again. Looking, next slide, we're going to look at the southwest Wyoming. This is, you can see this represented in the drought maps and the recent precip. For a lot of July, August, we were reaching maximums and above the 97th percentile. We had a weather system move in, dropped us down below average, and then it recovered pretty quickly back to the average. And we're a little bit below average, but still bouncing kind of right along that average line. And I would expect with a couple days of drying, we're going to be right around that average again, and possibly above average. I don't think we're going to get back up into the 90th percentile, but it's hard to predict that far out. Next slide, I think we're going to go to Medbo. You can see this, some of those fires in northwest Colorado. Kind of the same time we were hitting maximums in this area. We're fortunate we didn't have any large fires in that area, but we had similar conditions and then had a weather system move in, dropped us down. Then we did recover above average again. I think this is the only one that we did recover above average. And then this last weather system kept us down below average. On the next slide, I believe we look at, I wanted to kind of give you guys an option for those folks that are interested in fires and know what fires are going on. Most people are pretty familiar with this now, but a good app is Watch Duty. You can kind of set some alerts for where you're at, but if you're just general knowledge of fires going on in the state, this is updated real time anytime a update goes out for any of these fires. You're able to go in there and look. People post pictures of kind of fire behavior going on. So current large fires going on around the state. The Red Canyon fire is still uncontrolled. So there's some terminology here. No more growth is going on that fire, but it's such a large fire that it's going to remain open for a little while, just till they double, triple check. It's just got a large footprint. Moving to the west, you got the Dollar Lake fire. Last updates I've heard about that. There's not any active growth going on right now. Some of it's in the wilderness, and fighting fires in the wilderness can be tough. So I don't want to say that there wouldn't be any more growth there, but for the immediate future, they hadn't been expecting anything. And then to the Willow Creek fire, just a little farther southwest of that, kind of same thing, not expecting much growth. Really, this last rainstorm really helped a lot of the fires around the state. And fortunately, this year, we trended closer to that average fire season. And I think a lot of people are happy that we didn't have a repeat of last year. Other than that, Bighorn Basin, they had some significant fires, but we're fortunate it all fell within kind of a couple week time frame. It wasn't long duration. Final slide just kind of shows a farther look out through the rest of September. Red represents above normal fire potential, and Wyoming wasn't in it, and I think that was correct. We're kind of seeing that, and I don't expect us to have any significant changes by the end of September. They were expecting above normal fire potential in the Pacific Northwest. They had a pretty significant September, quite a few fires out there in Northern California, and then some of the Great Basin. I think some of the Great Basin got a little more rain than they were expecting when this map came out on the 1st of the month, and it didn't materialize quite as much, which we're fortunate for. Looking at October, there's not a lot expected. Kind of those areas that generally have an October fire season are California, Hawaii, and then you start seeing some stuff kind of poke up out to the east. I think I saw a predicted rapid onset drought out in that area somewhere in the next couple months. So there might be a fire season out there still yet. But for Wyoming, we're looking pretty good for the rest of the year. And that's all I have, Tony. Thank you.
Thanks, Chase. And we'll go back to Jeff Cowley to look at one of their great resources over there, the SEO Flow. And I am going to stop sharing so Jeff can drive.
Let's see if we can make this work. Okay, Tony, let me know if you're seeing what I'm seeing. So I'm on the SEO's website.
You're good.
And you can see there are several tabs on the first screen. One I'm going to click on right now is the statewide flow data. We also call it SEO Flow. Did it work, Tony?
You're good.
Okay, here's all the dots. Here's all the measuring stations, whether they are stream gauges or on ditches. You can zoom in on these, get data. I'm not going to click on too many because we tested this earlier and the font on the screen gets too small. But one of the ones that Aaron pointed out, the Sinclair, North Platte River near Sinclair, you can click on here. You can, when you click on the data set, you can get in there and you can see current flows. You can see the yearly flows. You can go back in history and see the flows if you're trying to do research. When you get in there, you can download all of that data. You can download the last 7 days, the last 30 days. I think you can even download the full data set if you're trying to do research or different work in that regard. But again, just a lot of data points out here that you can zoom in on. And I hadn't realized that Green River near LaBarge is the lowest flow on record. That's pretty bad. Green River is Wyoming's major tributary to the Colorado River. If you've been paying attention, there's a lot going on in the Colorado River. But you can click around in here, see if there's data that helps whatever you're working on. If you're not seeing something that you think you should see in there, give our office a call. You can call the superintendents if you know you're in that area or in their area, and they can help you with that. I do want to switch over to two different things now. It was on Tony's screen, but now I want to click on the Bear River Basin.org. That has, as you can see here, some teacup diagrams for reservoirs, rivers, canals. You can see weather station things on here, snow tell sites, all sorts of different things. This is updated every 15 minutes as our gauges are working. Hopefully they're always working, but if you see something that's broke, let us know. But if you were to click on one of these, you can see breakouts, diagrams, shoestring diagrams, whatever some people call these things, of all the ditches in a certain location on a river and what they're currently diverting. If you click on the rivers, you see what's currently flowing. If you're on the reservoirs, you see whether they're increasing in storage or decreasing in storage. Wyoming spent money on this. I don't know how long this has been up, 5 or 10 years now, but it's a good one-stop shop for everybody in the Bear River to go and see what's going on. The Bear River is our most regulated, our most complicated regulated system, and folks wanted to see everything in one place. This is what we came up with to do that. As I just mentioned, the Colorado River is a thing, so I'll go to the greenriverbasin.org. We just recently got this up. This has been up for maybe a month now. Again, has those same rivers, canals, snow tell. If and when we ever get snow again, if you guys could work on that, that'd be handy. Other info that's out there, but again, you can go in. I'll click on Hams Fork. We just saw that has new regulation on it. Well, that was a bad one to pick because there's only one thing working there. This is new. We're continuing to add to it. Let me click on a different one. See if it's got any better. Here we go. So we've got the Smiths Fork and all of the ditches and things that are going on, what they're diverting right now. Click on rivers. And you can just see at a quick glance what is going on these. Something to point out here, you can see whether it is a SEO gauge or a USGS gauge. I'll just gamble here, see if I can break something. Green River near the barge. And you can go and get data there. You can play with all of these things, download the data as a PDF. I've already exhausted my expertise on these, but happy to answer any questions if somebody has them. But just wanted to show that the state of Wyoming, the USGS, has got a lot of data out there on reservoirs, rivers, and ditches, so that people can see what's going on and have that kind of one-stop shopping. So I'll stop sharing, Tony, and are we going to do questions at the end or?
Yeah, we'll do them at the culmination here.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jeff. As Jeff said, the bear one's been around for quite a while, and it's good to see now that we got the green out there as well to complement that. All right, and let me get back to what I can see here. All right, and before I turn it back over to Callie to run us into the Q&A, I just wanted to say a word or two about another workshop that is available. There was one, I believe it was in July, and they're going to hold another one in November. This is being put on by the Drought Mitigation Center, and participants will be able to hear about the drought monitor creation process, and that'll be put on directly by the national authors. Each of the states has a group that submits recommendations that go to a national author, and then that's published each week. And this presentation is going to be put on by the authors themselves, and then there's going to be a question and answer period in the second half of that. So you can learn about the process, what goes into the drought monitor map, how you can help, all sorts of things like that. And I'd strongly encourage any of you who are interested in learning more about that process to go ahead and sign up. I've got the links here. You can contact the person sort of spearheading this, or you can sign up at the links that are shown there. Definitely would encourage participation in that if you're interested. And just thank everybody who's presenting. Always good to have a good group of folks on here like we have to impart the knowledge they have. So thanks to all our people. And now I will turn it over to Callie.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, just echoing that. Thank you all our presenters for your time putting together this information. And I am going to go ahead and stop the recording and see if we have any questions today.